Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome you all to the track session 3 on network security in 2025. So as we step into the era of dominating by transformative technologies, so this session will be including zero trust security, SASC, SDN, NFV security, cloud native architectures, 5G and edge computing, OT and IoT, quantum safe security, and automation. So we are privileged to have with us an esteemed panel of industry leaders who will guide us to the journey of securing our network for the future. So we welcome all the panelists on the floor. We introduce Mr. Sridhar Sidhu, CVP Cybersecurity, AT&T, who will be moderating the session for today. Welcome you, sir. Next, we would like to invite Mr. Krishna Amal, GCM, CISO, ONGC. Welcome you, sir. Also, we would like to invite Ms. Rama Devi Sangu, Principal Information Security Officer, Hindustan Zinc Limited. Welcome you, ma'am. Now, we would like to introduce Mr. Rishi Rajpal, Global Vice President, Global Security Concentrix. Finally, Mr. Puneet Ahuja, Religion Director, Technical, Palo Alto Networks. Welcome you, sir. Over to you, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we have obviously an interesting session, as people have already mentioned. Thanks. This is a cozy room. I think without mic also probably sometimes our vocal cords might work, right? First of all, thanks for taking time. I don't know how many of you managed to go through the rush of actually having your lunch, because it's been pretty hectic to find food there. So what we thought is, as simple as network security, but significantly many things are changing, whether we are in the mid-market SME sector or even large sectors too. There are a lot of things are changing. There are a lot of things which are coming onto the network. Good old days, everything is hardware-driven network. We're talking about now, almost last 4 or 5 years, everybody's talking about software-defined networks and virtualization and IoT, for example. If you look at processing industries or even in retail industries these days or healthcare, everywhere IoT devices are connected to network. So the concept of network security has significantly changed. So the idea is we'll try and get people from various organizations with relevant skill sets to talk about some of these aspects. So that's what we thought. So by this, no means if you look at it, even if you talk about as simple as a software-defined network, you can probably write a postdoctoral multiple researches. So the idea is not to dig deep into all of those areas, but at least from a panel members' experience standpoint, cover some other things, which maybe at least a part of you may or may not have had a physical hands-on experience, or maybe you are thinking about securing some elements of that kind of a network. What is the initial trigger for you to do a little more follow-on, right? That's the basic premise, right? As we said, so we have somebody from ONGC day in and day out. They do everything related to obviously the good old days of electronic control solutions, which we call these days anything is IoT, right? SCADA systems and all. Then another Rama is from Vedanta, so another large manufacturing and group. And then we have day-to-day, they do client service, right? So they'll also cover that. So we will probably have about 5 to 6 minutes for Q&A, but we are here. If any of you have got any additional interest, I'm sure I'm going to be here for next day and a half. And I don't know how many of you are going to be anyway here, right? So feel free to reach out and then whatever that piques your interest, and if we can add a little more value beyond what we discussed for the next 40 minutes, right? So with that, I'll probably start, right? So we always talked about, that's a good start. And melodious too. All right. So we have been, as security professionals, we have been talking about software-defined networks, and then how you can manage from a hardware to a software-driven network management. The risks associated with software-defined networks are significantly different, right? So how are we going to look at that aspect, right? So For example, Puneet is actually one of the sponsors, his organization for the entire DSCI event. So my question is that most of us are talking about SASE or maybe SDN, NFV, or for that matter, the so-called zero trust network architecture, which I said, by the way, we take the credit. I'm from formerly financial services. Before GTNA came up, we actually did that as an industry. So Puneet, first question to you, right? We've been talking about ZTNA for maybe 4 or 5 years in Indian context, also global context. In the last 12 months, what has significantly changed? What kind of course, ZTNA is a whole broad spectrum construct, but what are the components of ZTNA, at least from an Indian context, that has changed either in terms of risks or in terms of solution set that you could talk about ZTNA? And also SASE, cover that a bit.
Yeah. So ZTNA, how many of you know what ZTNA is? Okay, quite a few. Okay. So it's zero trust network access. That means you are trying to give access to people not trusting that user or application, right? That's what ZTNA means. There is another concept called ZTA, which is zero trust architecture, which is a superset. So that means ZTNA is a subset of ZTA. Once you start designing any infrastructure and start securing the gates, which we call so, zero trust architecture is the first thing that should be kept in mind. And once you start going lower in the domain, next layers, users, applications, then you start thinking of ZTNA. So that's where ZTNA comes into picture. Another thing which has changed, as Sidhu also mentioned, there are two things which has changed. One, the threat landscape has increased. Once we say threat landscape, users are working from anywhere now. We are working from here, right? You might be working from your phones from this place. Second thing, applications are residing everywhere these days. It's on-prem, it's on cloud, it's on internet. So to give a same secure user experience to a user working from anywhere, from airport or coffee shops or place like where this event is happening, it's a task for the people like us, for practitioners like us. So there are 5 things which are changing. The first one is we want to take security to the place where it starts with. And it starts with what? What is the first thing you open on your laptop? Browser, yeah, browser. So it starts with browser. So you need to decrease or you need to lower down the risk of browsers. That's the first thing which is happening. So as a Palo Alto network, we call it as a Prisma Access browser, but it's a concept in the journaling language. So you need to harden your browser, which is most vulnerable these days. Second thing which is changing is AI. Everyone hears about AI. So AI has 2 parts. One is Copilot, everyone use ChatGPT and all that stuff. Second is using AI with precision to counter the attacks which are coming our way. So precision AI data quality plays a good role over there. You can't run application like ChatGPT to secure or to give you actionables to counter the attack. There's a second thing which is happening, the AI countering AI, right? Third thing which is happening is app acceleration. So once we start putting a lot of nuances, plugs, some hurdles for users, the user experience goes for a toss. So that means you need to take care of user experience also. The caching, which was prior, if you heard of caching, the internet website used to cache at a local web server where user doesn't have to go to internet. So that the speed get enhanced. So that's been replaced by other technologies like user behavior. You profile a user and based on the user behavior, you download the content and give it to the user. So that app acceleration is the third thing which need to be taken care. And once you start talking about all these services that will make you feel that everything is dependent on this type of solutions. So that means resiliency play a role over here. You need to provide 5 times sort of resiliency. That means it has to, the solution has to be somewhere where there is no downtime for the user because everything is being done through that solution. And the fifth is, which is very important, is to monitor the digital experience. And once you say digital experience, once a user connect to any applications, there should be ways where user himself get aware that this is how my applications are working, this is where problem is. It is my machine or internet, hops in betweens, or application which is residing somewhere in somewhere else. So these are 5 things Sidhu to narrow down,
Thanks, Puneet. Thanks, Puneet. Again, at the cost of preparation, some of you have seats if you want to sit. I understand if it is boring, you want to step out, that is understandable, right? But those who can probably invest another 30 minutes, you can come and sit in the front rows, there are seats available. So how many of you, by show of hands, have thought about, are in the process, or have already implemented SASE solutions? Right? Very handful, so all the more reason. I'm sure some of you may be thinking, right, because of the benefits it actually offers. So let me turn to Rama. Rama, based on your overall experience, if any organization were to implement a SASE solution, what are the basic common things that you would probably tick all the boxes to say, yeah, this is how you approach, building a SASE solution into the organization?
Yeah, thanks, Sidhu, for giving me this opportunity. And as Puneet sir already told the importance of ZTNA, right? So why we want to implement that. And I would like to even take you through this COVID times, right? So when COVID times, we all saw that how the users are suffering, and we have given them the access from the remote also, from the BYOD devices they are operating, right? So all these are apart, and nowadays also we are giving a lot of third party users, right? So we give subcontracting to so many vendors, and their teams are coming up in the organization to access all our networks, right? So this is where this ZTNA and SASE will come into picture. So, and we have to ensure that before implementing this ZTNA solutions or SASE solution, so we have to ensure that all our access systems, all this variety of systems which are present in our organization are accessible through these softwares. Okay, so it should be like the whole of our asset management landscape should be covered over here. You have to ensure that each and every user can seamlessly integrate with this and then get into our network in a proper, authentic way. Okay, so that they can access whatever is authorized to them, not just anything and everything. So this is more important from this perspective. And also we also have to look into that how easy it is for us to deploy this solution and how easy for us to maintain that. Once we have deployed also, we need to even maintain it, right? So maintenance is free, or maintenance, low maintenance is required over here. And also there are so many other things which we have to look into, like easy operation is one thing, and SLAs also we can come into picture, where 99.9% or something, like we can set them as an SLAs and give them a target that without that we cannot go inside. So such things we all have to ensure in order to bring or keep it in mind before we implement the solutions. Thank you.
Thanks, Rama. Again, there are a lot of benefits. I know probably you have a lot of SASE solutions probably you're implementing.
I think whatever she said.
Yeah, sure.
We fit very much into whatever she said. But
Yeah.
I don't want to start over.
He's not selling Palo Alto, but I'm telling you, irrespective, right? I mean, implementation of solutions like SASE has got its own significant benefits across the spectrum: reduction of risk, seamless experience, and whatnot, right? So, okay, so let's turn to Amal. So, ONGC, one of the largest energy companies in the world, and obviously you would have not only your enterprise solutions and typical IT infrastructure, then you have a plant infrastructure which is heavily driven by control solutions. And we take a step back and see networks these days, everybody is using 5G based networks. A lot of computing is happening at the edge, right? There are, the way maybe 5 years ago the network to the network composition today is significantly different, which is definitely the case probably with ONGC too. So what has changed in the last maybe a year and a half too in terms of 5G network and then the edge computing and the associated risks?
So to start with, I would like to just start with the thing that the concept, we have been a technology intensive company and we have been using computing for quite some time now, maybe around 50, 60 years. In fact, one of the first supercomputers was with ONGC in India. the concept of computing, intensive computing, and with the advent of AI, has been centralized for the at least past 3-4 years. Now with edge networking coming in, that thing is moving out of our data centers to the field. But that, while it brings very good prospects, has also some security challenges. I would like to highlight some of those that we are trying to address. When these networks or these IoT devices are there at our, what we call our so-called wellheads, where we produce oil. So the parameters of the processing, which predominantly could be like pressures and temperatures and things like that, on which we base our calculations, are calculated at the edge itself. Now, immediate advantage that we get is, in terms of safety, if something untoward happens, suppose there is a leak, and at the same time there is a communication loss with the main data center, which normally does the analytics and tells that there is a leak and it needs to be shut down, that can be done at the edge itself. And at that moment itself it can shut down. So the latency, the connectivity, dependency, all those things are taken care of. So that's the prospects that we have. Of course, in a plant, it is much more better way that we can use it, even for unknown things like gas leak, which cannot be detected with naked eyes. We have advanced instrumentation and sensors, which are IoT-based sensors, which can detect such things. But the security challenge that comes in is, normally, whether we are working on-prem or on the cloud, we invest in security also to safeguard ourselves. Now, if I have 10,000, 20,000 such sensors deployed, IoT sensors across, so there are 10,000, 20,000 such small data centers I am having. And they are all available to the hackers. The additional safeguard that I have to have is, I cannot go for heavy security protection there, because they have these devices have to protect themselves. So that is why when we are investing in these need to comply with the added security challenges that we are facing, and being critical sectors that way from the Government of India perspective also, this has to be seen. So these we try to address with going for the best of breed products. The other regulatory challenge that we face is, we normally operate in area, but that is called hazardous zones. So anything, any equipment that is put in this area has to be certified by some statutory authorities in India. And most of these sensors and things like that are still imported. So Indian certifications presently are not there. They are coming in slowly, but presently there is a scarcity on that. So that we are addressing. Of course, the prospects are so great, because with 5G coming in, the advantage has been that the latency has been become very less. And secondly, what is important for critical devices like this is what we call the CIR, committed information rate. When with 5G bandwidth, we can ensure that it will always get the bandwidth required to communicate to the main server, even if there is a heavy deluge of traffic going on there. So that we are taking advantage. In fact, in our offshore locations, where there is no mobile network, we are relying totally on captive networks. There also, we are experimenting with 5G. We have done a POC. We plan to deploy it there also, so that advantage of 5G will be able to extend there also.
Yeah, thanks, Amal. See the benefit, right? So you don't have probably telecom connectivity, but you are using internally to actually help people communicate. I still remember, I think maybe about 17, 18 years ago, I've been talking about these edge computing and decision making at the edge. That capability wasn't there, obviously, about 17, 18 years ago. And we know that one of the oil wells ran for more than 60, 70 days to actually put the blowout, because, right, that was quite some time back. I mean, I don't know how many of you old enough to remember that, because I've been in the industry for 26, 27 years, right? Yeah, there are benefits really actually on the edge computing, but at the same time, the risk that Amal mentioned, that, instead of one heavily guarded data center to, every edge, equipment is a data center to actually mitigate that. Okay. All right. How many of you, by any chance, by your own organization, you are completely on cloud? Good. So how many of you are planning to completely move to cloud? Okay, 1, I see. 2, all right. So yeah, I mean, your traditional data center centric network management and security is very different from if you go to even a private cloud, or for that matter, public cloud. and it has got its own benefits. And we can always talk about, oh, I know people who moved on to cloud. They found the cost of operating a cloud is significantly higher than the cost, data center driven, and they are bringing back. Those are all, nuances. May be true for a certain company, may not be necessarily true for a certain company too. But it is inevitable that either partly or fully more and more organizations are going on to cloud, whether it is public or private cloud. So let me turn to Rama. I'm sure your organization also doing a bit of cloud as well, right? As the organizations are moving from their own critical infrastructure from data centers to the cloud infrastructure, right? What are the top 2-3 things from a security standpoint? Of course, there are a lot many others from a IT operations management standpoint, but from core security standpoint, your vantage point of view, what are the 3 things that potentially can create problem from security standpoint?
As Sidhu sir has already told that a lot of organizations are moving towards this cloud journey, right? So even our organization is almost in the midst of our migrations. So most of our servers and all the workloads have been migrated onto the cloud. So it's a hybrid model right now and a multi-cloud model where we are working on. So when I talk about this challenges which we look at this cloud in the cloud, so there are a couple of a lot of challenges, because on the ground we have defined perimeters, right? So when we move over the cloud, so we cross all these perimeters. We do not have any boundaries anymore. So we cannot assign the physical security controls over here. But at the same time, we have to more depend on the IAM solutions, like identity and access management solutions over here. So these are very stringent rules we have to frame here, so that which user, where he's accessing, and from which device he's accessing, and a bit granular RBACs models also we have to deploy. Okay, role-based access controls and all these things, right? So this is the main primary challenge. And talking about this, when we move on the cloud, so we because all our traffic is flowing from here anywhere in the world, right? So here encryptions play a very important role, critical role, and we have to have a robust encryption technologies implemented both at the server side and at the client side also. So SSEs and CSEs are very important over here. So we have to ensure that our data is secure, right? So, and next we can go through this. There are a lot of data protection technologies, right? So that is where we have talked about, and IAM solutions we have talked about, and more to coming into the mid-sector management, mid-sector organizations moving on to the cloud. They have to even ensure that the applications which they are going to migrate should be cloud ready. So they just lift and shift the applications from the on-premises to the cloud just as it is, but that is not...
Yeah. How many of you actually felt, if at all you have moved either partly to a private or public cloud, how many of them have seen actually lift and shift? Right? It's not easy, right? Many people don't do the transformation of the infrastructure, right? So I know there is a 2:30 meeting that is from the Director General of CERT India. So I understand if any of you were invited. I am also invited. We will finish this after go, but feel free, if you need to get into that meeting, understandable. Let me turn to Rishi, right? So a lot of things have changed in the last 4 or 5 years, and then the components on the network side, and majority of them are software driven, so which helps potentially some amount of automation and orchestration that is possible, right? So let me turn to Rishi and say, hey, in the last probably 12, 18 months, what are the use cases in terms of network security, automation and orchestration that we have seen would draw more value from broader security standpoint?
Thanks, Edu. From my personal opinion, if you cross a certain scale, you will start to feel that putting more humans at work may not help. You have to bring in automation, you have to bring in orchestration. Because if you, on an average, an individual is carrying 2 to 3 devices, the amount of data that we are generating is exponentially exploding. So organization of our size is getting about 25 terabytes daily, which means I cannot have 1,000 people in my SOC. So I'll have to bring in that automation. Otherwise, if I live in the legacy world, and if I'm taking days to remediate, then it's a big problem. So I think the mantra really is, if you can integrate, orchestrate, automate, and remediate. If you can follow this mantra, I think that is be very, very cool for you. Why I say integrate first and orchestrate later is because you need to get your IT teams on board on what you are doing. Now you cannot tell today that I want to integrate 4 devices, then I will orchestrate, then I will automate, then I'll remediate. By the way, I need to add 16 more devices. So do it comprehensively, do it from the scratch, do it once and for all, so that you get your results on the automation side. Obviously, anything which is software, you need to think about vulnerabilities. And 2 metrics that we show to the board, everybody should show to the board, is mean time to detect and mean time to repair. That has to drastically go down, 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 and you should see a downward trend. And if for any reason those metrics are going up, which means it's a matter of time that you'll get breached.
Thanks, Rishi. So as I said, we will have about 4 or 5 minutes for a couple of questions. So this is supposed to be till 2:45. So I'll ask probably Puneet one question. As you know, Rishi and everybody mentioned, there is a lot of data that is moving across networks compared to where it was maybe 3 years ago. And especially in India, in the last probably 3 years, we know that how the proliferation of telecom technologies resulted in India being the largest country in terms of data generation and consumption compared to any other country, right? So as the data keeps moving, one of the significant risks is that data security, right? We all talk about quantum computing. I myself have been talking for the last 7-8 years. Probably today we have maybe 1,000 qubits kind of a scenario, right? And we use probably encryption standards with 2048 and all that kind of stuff. So we have some time to go for being quantum unsafe, right? But there are threat actors who are doing slightly different things. One of them is actually be a man in the middle, grab the data. You will not be able to decipher it, but the more and more the data you actually grab and keep it, and when you're ready to decrypt it with the quantum technologies or other things, then that's the gold mine for you, right? So that's one thing that is happening, which predominantly happens across opposing countries and nation state actors. They keep doing that. It's not that there is one sane person in the world. Everybody does that for their own benefits, right? So while that is happening simultaneously, I'll ask Puneet as to, in terms of core quantum safety and readiness standpoint, what are the things that are changing in the last, maybe a year or so? And then if you want to, put in maybe a Palo Alto view also, that's fine.
Yeah. So I think the view is all generic right now for quantum. And of course, data is gold. Everyone knows that, right? It's a new definition for gold is, of course, data. And the people, so I'll give you 2 perspectives. One is what the people on the other side are doing. They are trying, as Hiddu also mentioned, they are trying to harvest. That means they are trying to write down the codes or using a small initial scripting or a software which can be used to seed. So they want to seed it now and nurture it once everything is ready. So quantum though is making a lot of quantum computing, quantum roadmap, quantum tunneling, quantum key distribution, a lot of terms which are being used and will be reality in next 5 to 10 years. That's what we see. Once these are ready, then they'll go and start nurturing whatever they seeded, in the time to come. And there are serious organizations on the other side who are doing it because it's going to be a reality. Second thing which is happening is, as a company like Palo Alto Network, what we are doing is, we are educating our customers to be ready with quantum once it comes. Second, we are also trying to develop our products right now. So if you have heard of NIST, recently launched standards for crypto for quantum. So we'll start using that so that our products are ready before all this stuff which we are hearing and look like sci-fi, but it's just going to be reality in another maybe 3 to 10 years going forward. So we want to be ready for that. So right now it's more of education and making our product ready with the standards which are coming our way. So that's where we stand right now. On safety point of view, it's more of precautions, readiness, as far as the education is concerned, keeping our devices, ready for development, because you have to keep your devices. It's not that go and there's something which has come and you start developing a few things, there and then. You have to keep your devices, your code ready, so that we can plug those things which are not yet standardized into our code, and they're ready to suffice or give you more efficacy once these things come to reality. So that's where we stand right now, Sidhu.
Yeah, thanks, Puneet. So we have about 7 minutes. Maybe we'll take 2 or maybe 3 questions, if anybody has any questions.
If not, Sidhu can continue for half an hour.
No, I'll jump on to Mr. Bell's call. Yeah, there. One moment, I'll give the key.
Thank you. So I have a question.
Would you mind introducing yourself and the company that you're from?
Yeah,
if you
sure.
don't mind.
So my name is Sangram Kadam. I represent the HDFC Bank, and I'm part of ISG Group, Information Security Group. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have a question around SASE framework. So does SASE basically covers only CASB web security gateway, or it also adds any additional value in terms of overall framework?
Yeah, Puneet, you want to take that?
So I'll keep it generic, not Palo Alto specific. So CASB is only a part of SASE. So if you go by a broader definition of SASE, SASE is giving access to anything, which can be user or a remote office. So SD-WAN, if you have heard of, SD-WAN also falls under SASE umbrella. Right. So it's giving secure access to all the endpoints, which can be user or a remote office or something else. So that's one thing which CASB is a portion where you go and act as a broker and secure the application access. On the user side, it's a broader term. On the application side also, it's a broader term, because anything which is going out of SASE umbrella, which is lying in between as a mid layer, goes through SASE, which can be internet, which can be application hosted in cloud, which can be application hosted by SaaS providers or something.
Okay, so in that case, does it cover traffic originating from user to the application, or it can also sort of give the framework for protection of application to application traffic protection?
No. User to application to application is also very much possible.
I think it's a much broader, it covers everything from user when it starts the connection, and now more and more companies are adding experience to it. So for example, typical security professional feels that if I add security, I don't care if the machine gets slow, I don't care about the server gets slow, but it is still protected. Now what is happening is SASE players are also putting experience, which is DEM, the word is digital experience management, where they will measure end-to-end experience as well. So for example, if you were accessing a database server which was hosting in AWS, but you were sitting in somewhere in office or remote office, where you are actually getting slow, whether it's a SASE provider, whether it's a database server, whether it's your own computer. So it will be able to give your metrics as well. So SASE is getting bigger and bigger, but it is much more than just GASB and Swig.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, there is one question on this side.
Hi, I'm Rahul Singh. I'm representing one of the sectors under Ministry of Defense, a government organization. I have a question for the forum, considering, and I'll bring out the diversity. We are talking about SASE, and we right now maintain a air-gap network, and that air-gap network is pan-India. It's not a single data center, right? What problem we are facing, especially if Puneet or anyone can pitch in on this, that the best of the security products which are available on internet right now, once I bring them into standalone network, their performance goes for a 6. Whether you talk about threat intelligence, whether you talk about signature updates, whether you talk about AI-enabled features, everything goes for a 6. And surprisingly, none of the solutions or market leaders, let us say Palo Alto, Checkpoint, Cisco, they don't have a solution, let us say something using data diode, one-way communication, something through which a air-gap network can connect to internet and make the performance same as what it is performing on internet. So should organizations like us are required to go away with air gap connect to internet, or the industry right now is ready and is thinking about providing a solution to such networks also?
So the
Thank you.
word same is the most critical thing in your entire question. So I'll let probably, Amal, if you want to take, or anybody, if you want to cover that, yeah.
So I would like to share the experience because ours is also similar in the core OT area. We are similarly air gap. I'll not say 100% air gap like the defense, but to an extent, yes. So how we are catering to this is we just place one server which in itself has some security measures in place, and along with that the additional security button like you mentioned, the data diodes and all that are there. That connects to another server in our IT network, and through that IT network the patches are done. But the thing is, whenever this patching is also done, there is also a sanitization done. So there is some amount of manual effort there, because what happens in OT area, typically the OEM has to certify that this particular patch or this thing is applicable and you can deploy it. Then only we can deploy, even if the OS vendor would have released this maybe 2 months back. So we wait for that. That is the way we are catering to. Coming to the performance issues of it, traditionally we have been using the firewalls and things like that which have been on-prem. So from that perspective we have not faced much challenges in terms of performance. But of course, the signature updates and all, we have gone for a little advanced concept there, wherein the signatures updates required are bare minimal, maybe once in a month or so, something like that, mostly on user behavior analysis based.
And I know of at least 2 startups who are working on the diodes concept, and they can cluster the diodes based on your traffic. While you may remain air gapped, you will still be able to get the updates very early, and they've done a very decent job. I personally looked at their architecture, and that is specifically designed for air gapped.
Okay.
You can have further offline conversations, so he can
Definitely,
share the details so that you can. Yeah.
I can add to it, Rahul. How others are doing is in other part of the world. One is there is something called Dev Cloud. That's one thing which, as India, we should think about. Second thing which we do as Palo Alto right now is we have something called on-prem zero-day prevention, and it's almost a subset of what we do on the cloud. Not as accurate as because it's like we are giving content updates like in minutes now, because the things are changing so rapidly. So it's not that up to date, but yes, very near to 80 to 90% efficacy it gives on-prem. Of course, there will always be a gap, because the type of data we analyze on the cloud and the compute we have there, we can't build that on-prem. But 80 to 90% we can still reach out to or there. But I think the way to go is Dev Cloud, maybe Defense Cloud for India.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Puneet. I know we have just 1 minute. Let me summarize, because the other panel members and other probably participants for the next session would be here any moment. So in summary, that the way the networks are enabled itself has significantly changed from a predominantly hardware-driven to almost predominantly software-driven networks. And the components that are coming onto the networks have also significantly changed. Originally, the IoT devices, which are confined to a small set of industries, has almost proliferated into every industry across, whether small, medium, or large. So the way you run your networks has changed. The configuration of the components coming onto the network also significantly changed. So that's where a lot of challenges in terms of network security is coming in. And layer 3 security is probably the best security one can hope for before we get into that one. So thanks for taking time. As I said, if you have any other questions, there are a few people here. You can, hit them on LinkedIn, or if they have any questions, feel free to reach out. So thank you very much for the panels for wonderful time. So thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.